Yo YouTube, GK back, and we're here with a Final Fantasy 15 Comrades lore through. We'll just jump right into it. I had recorded the video for this, but I sound a little better today. So, the lightning bombs are attracted to the power that we're sending through the pylons. The pylons are just like our regular cell towers, basically, and if they were to continue to cause damage and suck the power, then the places that need power wouldn't have it. So as a glaive, we are tasked with eliminating the threat and protecting the pylon. I want to say welcome back, happy holiday, new year, or whatever you celebrate. I just finished up taking the notes for like an actual video. I can tell that these, not that they're low effort, but you know, when you're cutting a video together and comprising all your thoughts in a, you know, constructed manner, you know, they just take a little more time. So considering everything, I might take a shift or a gear towards that more so in terms of videos. So I think that'll be the direction, and I think the first one will be it'll be like some title of like some of the things I need to see in Final Fantasy X-3 when they eventually get around to doing it. So here's a pylon, so we'll get right to it. Like I said, I'm really strong, so if you're looking for tech, if you're looking for all that other stuff, you're not really going to see it here, because I'm very strong. However, we do fight a notable enemy in this playthrough or lore through. Not this exact mission, but you'll see it. So, you know, classic bombs, you've seen them in pretty much every Final Fantasy for, you know, quite a long time now, actually. I want to say almost like since the first game, almost. I think they very well may have been in the first game. Classic, you just, you know, hit them and they get bigger. The flans, you know, you always remember them from Final Fantasy X a lot, or me, I do, because they kind of like looked the best graphically. Obviously, it was the newer system. But I liked these ones a little better because they had like different type of attack. They weren't just your magic casters. They did that little jump and then splashed, and these are all of the demon kin variety. You know, those little like flan things and the bombs. They're not in the world normally. The purple color is usually a dead giveaway as to what kind of enemy you're fighting. One of the most interesting enemies comes in this fight, those samurai. I love that samurai design, the fight itself. I think they're a very cool enemy that was created. You know, it's just like every time I play F15, I'm like, I always just want to go back and play it. You know, like most Final Fantasies, but this one just seems to always want to draw me back in, because everything that it tried to do, whether you think it, you know, succeeded or not, you know, it made you hype for the next Final Fantasy. It made a lot of people very hype for the next Final Fantasy. Longtime fans and newer fans, which I think is very important. You know, it comes a time in everyone's life where they have to, you know, cut some of that excess fat off. You know, because if you keep letting that, you know, that fat grow, I'm just using fat as a metaphor, not literal fat, but you know, you let it fester and you know, like a tumor. You know, some of those people, you know, from the franchise. I'm not saying anyone deserves to be cut from something they enjoy, but when you can't at least appreciate newness for the change it could potentially bring to a franchise and what it could possibly do for your franchise and the direction it's going in, and you know, then your input becomes slightly nostalgia based and slightly just dated. And there is a place for dated arguments as to like Final Fantasy should be turn-based again. You know, there is that argument. I do see it. However, a turn-based game, it's won't win game of the year in 2020. You know what I'm saying? It's just not. And it shouldn't. When I play Final Fantasy, I picture the next Final Fantasy being a big combination of this, because I think they do a lot of things right in this, and this Final Fantasy was actually ahead of the genre and a lot of games, in terms of what it tried to do. But I want to see it like this, definitely, like God of War and like Red Dead. All three games are very slowed down in terms, it just have a slowed down feel to them. And I think the latter games that I mentioned did excel better at that. However, I think Final Fantasy definitely took the first leap for a lot of other franchises, like Monster Hunter Worlds, for example, into this new genre and this new direction and style of gameplay. And I think the slowed down direction could work with Final Fantasy very well. There you see. I know I was just rambling there for a second because just want to talk about Final Fantasy in general. So a mysterious new enemy pops up, and it was an experiment at one of the Imperial bases, and we can't let that get out. So it's one of our higher level missions, and we have to go eliminate the target. It's not Omega, there has been enemies in the franchise called it just experiment, blah blah blah, but I really like the design of this. It is Omega-esque, especially if you were comparing it to the Final Fantasy X Omega, just the way it kind of sits and has the general overtones of the design, even though it's very different. It has like the weird hand claw thing, and it kind of droops. It's just a cool looking enemy. But as I was saying, a slowed down Final Fantasy could definitely work. And my issue is, though, I'd rather you do 4 characters great than give me 7 characters not so good. That's always the problem with FF2 now, is deciding whether you want to, because it was a lot easier back then to give you, some of those games had like 20 characters, or some of them had 7, or some of them had 6, and then some side characters. And it was easier to do that when you didn't have to pay attention so much to how they moved and how they felt in general, because you don't want to pick up Noctis and Noctis play like Prompto. That was something they did really well in this game as well, that didn't get a lot of credit, is that every character moved and felt and played differently. So you can play the whole game as Gladio and he'll fight differently. And that was really appreciated about the game. So when you think about your next new Final Fantasy, you gotta think that you're not just gonna be pressing X and they're gonna be doing a little animation and they're gonna attack. Or Final Fantasy X2, Yuna, Riku, and Pain, they all played the same way. You know what I'm saying? But even that game got hated on and then got loved by some eventually. So you definitely got to consider that. And like I said, I welcome all change, albeit for better or worse, because change is inevitable. So trying to stop something that is inevitable will never yield a great result for you. However, harping on the past and living in that is great for a while. However, it'll hit you even harder when you noticed that something has passed you, and you'll blame that thing for passing you or not waiting for you, when it was you the whole time who couldn't see the change and can move with the times. So I guess that's all the little tangent I had. Maybe I tried something different with the Lorethrough. It's just maybe instead of just sticking to like what's going on screen, because sometimes it can be a little slow and other times it could be very fast. Maybe you would just rather someone just talk about Final Fantasy in general while you play Final Fantasy Comrades, and check out some of this lore. So what I didn't go over there was Sid talking. He actually said what I had already mentioned about Regis having a son, and he wanted all his weapons custom made. And then Talcott at the beginning was talking about how, well, he's like the new tipster, and the tipster was Dino. Dino was our guy who told us that he wouldn't tell everyone that we're the king if we do whatever for him, and that's kind of the nickname for little Talcott there. And he just mentions that Dino's watching Angel Guard and weird things are happening over Angel Guard, like the clouds are really dark, and we're not allowed to go there, it's off limits, and he's going to keep an eye on it because it is a place that the gods gather, but before it was a prison where people were imprisoned. Now I don't know if it was a prison for the gods, like for example, did Bahamut imprison who we're calling Garuda from the newest update? Was Garuda in prison there first and then executed basically, or something, or was it for people like normal people? So we're not really sure on that detail. However, the god imagery or astral imagery might work better for the idea of it being a prison. So we're lighting up our way. I didn't do any farming, so basically we're getting our kilowatts and using it to purchase one thing at a time, and trying to pick the ones that give us a mission, so then that mission can progress us the story. I can undoubtedly go do the hardest mission I have available, farm that, take 10 minutes and have enough kilowatts to do amazing things on the board. However, I'm just taking my time, just like you might be, in between playing other games as well. Christmas comes, you get tons of games and stuff, and just hanging out, enjoying my time. Recently just been playing a lot of Prey, and then probably be moving to Spyro, honestly, with I play a lot of Final Fantasy 14 as well, so your daily hunts and trying to catch up basically before the newest patch, which comes really soon actually. And who knows, that could be something I do on the channel. I'm almost caught up. I mean, I still have a lot to do. However, it's not that much, and I'm not necessarily the strongest character you've ever seen, but I'm pretty much up to date on the the story definitely, but the side quests and stuff is really just, I really just have to do the high-end trials and the savage raids, and that's it in terms of and then Pyros, and then Hydatos and stuff. Well, that's probably a foreign language to you if you don't know what I'm talking about, so I won't talk about it. So here we have another escort mission. So like I said, the wildlife in that little excerpt, the wildlife is going just as erratic as we are, and they're looking for food. So animals that normally wouldn't, like those sangans right there, and then the pincers, they normally wouldn't come this far away from the ocean banks. However, they're encroaching on the roads. You normally wouldn't see that too much in 15 unless they, some of them are chasing you, or the abnormal one or two, but you wouldn't see a whole mob of them. I like the way they move a lot. The Sangans, they got an updated whole look and vibe. They slither on the ground. They're really cool. But yeah, so that's what we're doing here, because again, these supply routes are very important to us, and for what little daylight we have, it's as if the wildlife causes us the most problem during the day, and then the demons cause us the most problems during the night. It is usually how it shakes up. You'll do a lot of your animal hunting, animal hunting during the day, and your demon slaying at night. So yeah, you saw that shield tech. There's a mission that you'll see in the dossier that I can't necessarily. Oh yeah, we should go back to the dossiers. Next episode, we'll go back to the dossiers. And I also, it's funny because I do this for the lore through and definitely for you guys and for myself. You know, I'll tell myself like, hey, make sure you check the dossiers or whatever. So it's like a nice little check for me. So we'll definitely go back and do that. But there's a mission I'm not gonna do yet. It's called Departure, and it has all the bros. I just don't find it. Even though I have it unlocked, I don't find it. I don't think it would be something that you might have unlocked at this point, considering my level and the strength and the things I'm not doing and the things I am doing. Don't worry, everything will get done. You know what I'm saying? No doubt about it. So I just didn't want to do it yet. I'd rather wait a little bit and do that mission so I can put that into context for you a lot better. But you know, visually the game is always stunning, and I like this open world feel a lot. Actually, I think they did it really well. So we're gonna finish up those Sangans or Sangans or whatever they're really like called, and continue our way down the rabbit hole here. Just trying to slay them all as quickly as possible. If you remember the design from Final Fantasy X Sangans, the little yellow greenish things that were basically underwater until like X2, where you had maybe some of them get not in the water, but they could be in like a cave or something, like the underground Bavel area. So everything in 15 just is a lot more menacing. It has an overall scarier feel to it, almost like Final Fantasy VIII's world a lot. It's very comparable in terms of overall themes and look, you know. And I understand that Final Fantasy IX is a very highly regarded game in terms of, you know, reception and sales. However, 9 was very formulaic, and 9 didn't exactly push the boundaries. Because if you look at the difference between 7 and 8 graphically, and what they were able to do in the short amount of time they did it in, that's why that's why they've said, like, you know, they might as well just remake the game entirely instead of remaster it, because it'd be so hard and so much work. That's not my Final Fantasy franchise. I like a Final Fantasy franchise that has always been known to push graphics first, whether it be in the cutscenes or with the actual engine. And I think graphics do win you a lot of points, especially if you're Square Enix. But if you look at that drastic change, this 15 is a drastic change from 13, the trilogy. Even though that game, it did have its own look to it, and it did have a little more of an edge, it wasn't this edgy. And not edgy in like a bad, oh man, faux Italian bro edgy, you know, just edgy like 8 was. You know, 14 looks amazing too, but it's, you know, it's a different kind of game. But I don't know, I'm excited, and I can't wait for, you know, Final Fantasy 15 to be like done, to see what else finally comes out for the game and what else they have in store, and then sit down and just play this, you know, 200-hour game. I mean, Comrades itself, you're going to play it for about 40 hours, 35 hours. And that's if you just do like the bare minimum. And maybe that's a little much, but you're really going to play it for a long time. So, you know, and especially with everything they've added to the main game now, you'll be sitting in that game for about 100, you know. So, and that's if you don't do everything. You know, I don't expect everyone to do everything all the time, but, you know, if you wanted to rush through Final Fantasy like right now, Final Fantasy 15 in its current state, you're going to take 60 hours, like, easily. That's just what you're going to do, and there's no shame in that. And long, big games like this, they are rare to find, especially with added content. So there's that mission I was talking about, the urgent one, where all the bros are there. We're just not going to do that right now. It's just not something I think we should even concern ourselves with. I have like the squeakiest chair in the history of the squeakiest chairs. So we'll just skip that for now and continue on our journey looking for new missions. So this is another hunting mission. Sorry, it's a little late. This is another hunting mission. And they basically, it's just an upgraded version of that one, the one we did, because we need the food, and they hold a lot more food than the other ones, and that's basically what we're doing. Also, the side fact is that, you know, they're going wild and they're looking for food, but it's really more so that we want to eat their food, because it'll really, really help us. Sorry about that. I think I was a little tired. The medicine had kicked in, but we'll continue with the lore through. Like I was talking about earlier, just trying to expand my options with the channel and things I like to do versus what you may want to see. You know, lay it down in the comments. I play tons of games, you know. I was mentioning a few earlier in the lore through. I'll switch up my weapons the next game too as well, and get away from the shuriken, shield, katana, and mace. We'll do the I know we'll switch up our royal sigil as well, but we'll do the crossbow it's actually not the crossbow, but we'll switch them up, because there are more than, you know, that 4. Charge attacks, I guess that's something I also didn't mention. You can hold down the attack button for certain weapons and they'll charge your attack. As you see, there's no HUD screen, so it's just so you can really see those visuals nice and clear. But like I said, we want the meat for this for our town of Ostalum. If you saw the Rock of Ravito back there, there's actually a burning body in there, and it's a really important body. It's missed a lot. People don't really get it. That's why it continuously burns. The astrals, their bodies, not only, you know, have the effect of when they're alive, but when they're dead as well, they cause massive problems. Like Shiva's body is a good example of that. So that's just a little bit there, but these barefoot Gorlarusa, as they call it, like barefoot, I'm assuming is a play on barefoot Chardonnay, or actually I'm just making that connection as sustenance wine. And that's really it for, you know, this mission. Gladio came and left basically to go train, make sure he comes back stronger. Same thing will happen again with all the other people, and they'll have dialogue for them, but it wasn't too big of a, you know, lore heavy episode this time around, though there are some things still coming up that might interest you. Just, you know, working on my YouTube stuff, trying to get a voice that is somewhat decent to hear, you know, and everyone has opinions. You don't have to necessarily agree or disagree with mine, just to break the monotony of you playing, because I'm a big YouTube watcher, and, you know, sometimes just throwing on old videos I've already seen doesn't necessarily do it for me, and sometimes you throw it on just for the conversation that you could have with yourself, you know, when you're sitting playing your game or whatever game it is, and someone will say something and it'll spark an idea. That's where a lot of creativity can happen as well. As you see, I didn't grab food there. That's my mistake. Not something I really need. However, that's a great meal to have. Experience boosts, which was great in the main game. So we'll keep it moving. Like I said, it's a very short episode. I still am technically under the weather, or I'd planned that I was under the weather for this episode. However, I heard the previous one and it just didn't sound good at all. And this one still doesn't have me up to form and par, especially with the lore aspects I wanted to get to. So I do apologize for that. You know, for now it's gonna have to be that way, but I did just finish working on what I would like to see in Final Fantasy X3, so I'm really excited about that. I have all the notes. I think it'll be done in like a podcast setting rather than, well, it's gonna be like a video where, you know, I've edited it in some footage and gonna talk about that. So it's definitely gonna be quite long. I realized it might be broken up into 2 parts. You know, I'll make the video one big one and then cut it. But our dear friend Prompto comes. Now Prompto's, and he says it's lit Stalin. It was kind of a funny joke, but Prompto is an interesting character because the debate is whether is he real or is he fake, and it's not really much of a debate unless you mean internally with his own psyche. He's very much real. It's just, however, was he a failed MT? Well, for the theory to hold weight, and it's hard because we see Prompto as a child in the anime Brotherhood, and it's hard to fathom that an MT then could not only be born into being an MT, but like grow as an MT. Usually we see the MTs, you know, fully matured and behind armor because they can't stand in the sun or light for that matter. And Prompto seems to really defy all of that. It's probably why he was so special, and he's the son of Idolus. Is the other key aspect there. He's actually his son. Now, it's not whether it's his biological father in the terms that he had a mother and those two were together and then they had Prompto. It's more like Idolus's cells were taken. So I guess a little bit of a Cloud Sephiroth thing going on there with Prompto. And I mean, I guess you could just say that Prompto will end up looking like Idolus. I really like this fight as I throw out my shield, and if you catch it, the bullets, not right here, but the bullets shatter the shield when with his gun. It's just it's so cool, and I purposely try to do it. So I'm fighting him. It's just a cool fight, you know, like right there. It was just cool. So me and Prompto are gonna get on. I remember this being rather hard when I first fought him at the appropriate level. So yeah, he does the same moves, the star screen right there, and it was just cool. Prompto is the glue that kind of sticks our family together. He's a friend of Noxus, has nothing to do with the Royal Guard. It's just an actual friend he met outside of the kingdom, and is our comic relief. Sincere. They're all sincere, but wears his sincerity on his shirt. Here's Cindy. She's talking to Holly about how she's throwing a garage and how, you know, she misses it and all that. And other characters will be out here in the world for you to go talk to. So as you're playing, just remember to take a walk around or take a trip or visit the other areas, because there's, you know, stuff like this there. And this is very much what this game is about, is taking your time, going around, getting these lore bits, because one of the major complaints was the 10-year time gap in 15. And this really serves to fill that gap in, not only with activity, as in the quests, the fighting, the glaives, you know, your characters that you bonded with for the duration of the game up until that point, but it serves for the lore overall of the world, and it isn't Noctis and party, indeed true. However, it is worthwhile to play, and especially this, it will start to heat up greatly. So I'm GK. I hope you found some of this enjoyable, and I'll catch you in the next one.